you've already mentioned him a lot, but I wanted you to talk a little bit more about what your son is doing
Yeah,
in Nashville.
my son Tyler Chiarelli is the lead guitar player and band leader for the country duo Florida Georgia Line.
That's cool.
And
Kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
yeah, it kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit. Didn't always start that way though.
Yeah.
And if you want to see a blueprint for making it in this business, you should study Tyler. Tyler started playing drums when he was 5 or 6 years old. Went all through high school on drums and college scholarship, and he was a Class A fabulous drummer in all genres. In high school or in college, he decided he wanted to take up guitar, so he's self-taught. Wouldn't let me show him anything, that guy, which is fine. I mean, he taught himself. And Tyler devoted himself to talk about a professional from the time that he was young. His life was devoted to music. Every dime he made was from music, whether it be working in a music store, whether it be playing gigs around the countryside or out of state or whatnot. And Tyler reached a point where it was either go do what you want to do or get a real job. And I'll never forget sitting in our driveway having a wonderful conversation about that. Not, you need to get a real job, but let's talk about where you are in this career. And basically where Tyler was playing with a wonderful group of guys who were a very, very good band, but they were a bar band.
Yeah.
Just like all of us. They were a bar band. They played out of town and whatnot, and somebody owned a tour bus, and they rode around in a tour bus, but they're a bar band. And we talked about that and said, you guys are excellent. You guys are people love to come see you play, but that's the reality of it. And if you want to go to the next level, you're going to have to be ready to deal with the rejection and everything that's going to come with trying your hand at a true professional career in music. Well, Tyler began his trek by going down to Nashville about twice a month and hanging out in the clubs where his idols played. He is a tremendous fan, and he's proud to say now a friend of a gentleman by the name of Tom Bukovac, who's one of the A-list fabulous guitar players in Nashville, and a number of other people that he has met along the way, who took him under their wing to teach him not about gear, not about style, but his questions to them were, why do people call you when they want somebody? And Tom and Tyler,
that's a good question.
Tom and Tyler would talk about what is the person you need to be? What is the level of commitment that you need to have to make people think, I need a guitar player, what's Tyler's number? And he learned from those guys, and he took it to heart and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. As is usually the case, and he will tell you, everybody down there is a good player. I mean, if they're going to stick their foot in that water, they got to bring something to the table. And so yes, it is. What is your networking like? Who do you know, and that kind of thing. That's the way the world acts. But you have to be able to bring something to the table. And he was fortunate enough to have those skills. And when he found himself in positions to audition and whatnot, came to the table loaded. Tyler's audition with Florida Georgia Line is an example of devotion. They were looking for an auxiliary guitar player to add to their sound, and Tyler had known them. In fact, he had when they were first starting long ago, was friends with them and was very good friends with their lead guitar player, and they were on a mini tour. He was with somebody else, but anyway, he knew them, and they were friends, and so everybody talking goes, well, I wonder if Tyler would be interested. Well, he was required to audition, which I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, he's my buddy. Bring him in to play. No,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
know. What does he look like? What does he sound? I mean,
Great, bring him in, but he's gonna audition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got to
yeah.
earn his spot, right?
Yeah.
So they sent him the CDs with the tracks that he was going to audition with. Rob, not only did he learn those, he got on YouTube and learned every guitar part to every song, both the live versions and the studio versions. He learned, they said these harmonies, he learned them all.
Good for him.
He was not going to go into that audition unprepared.
Yeah.
He had had an experience, if he sees this, he'll kill me for telling the story. He had a situation in high school where he crashed and burned because it was like, I can handle that.
Yeah.
And he has learned it, thank God, and taken it to heart the rest of his professional life, and it has paid dues like crazy. So he goes into the audition, right? And he's expecting the band to be there. There's an amplifier, his guitar, and a pedal board, and a microphone, an iPod, and a video camera. The manager and the band leader, who was his buddy, were sitting out in his auditorium audience, and that's all that was there.
Yeah.
They flicked on that iPod and said, play. So he's like, I just played, did what I did, and you know, they're like, yeah, that's the guy. So I mean, and, you know, and so as
See, that's the stuff that we don't understand.
That's right.
That little moment in the audition where you're expecting one thing and they come out
With
no, and that's getting back to what you said about these guys think they can do this, right? These underling guys think they can be this, and I mean, that's deal with it.
You have no idea.
Go. Deal with deal with this right now.
And you know, again, this is not a comment about the intelligence or the ability of the guys that I run into around here. Those that think they could handle that. It's just simply a lack of knowledge in most cases as to what happens at that level.
Yeah.
When you are looking for somebody to go on the road with an artist that has just sold how many millions of copies of this thing on the road, who needs to present a certain image, who needs to act in a certain way. Everything that goes into that level, that goes well beyond your playing. One of his first auditions was with a group, and they wanted to meet. They wanted him to meet them at this office where they did songwriting. So Tyler went in, took his, said, just bring your acoustic guitar. Went and sat down at this conference table with these guys, played for 10 minutes. And they went, okay, fine, let's go get a beer. And he said, you know, down there again, in that, most of the people, the vast majority of people come to town, they have the chops that get them those auditions. And
Right.
He said, they want to know more if you're a decent human being.
Yes,
Can they spend
I
24?
love that.
Can they spend 24 hours with you on a bus? You know,
They don't
without
need
killing
to.
you?
They don't need to hear his playing
No,
anymore.
no.
They've heard 2 seconds. They
No.
got it.
They knew who he was.
How's it gonna be like
How's
out
he going to
this-
be out there on the road?
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that the guys around here wouldn't be wonderful on the bus. That's not my comment. That's
Right.
not my point at all. My point is that is such a different world than we think it is. That that there is a presumption that just because I can play halfway decently, and these guys can, they can play great, does not necessarily mean that you will be successful in this other world. He tells me stories about some of the greatest players he's ever heard will never work because people cannot stand to be around them.
Yeah.
And so some of those guys, they're stuck in their home studios doing demo work because people can't stand to be around them. I had we were at his a long time ago. We had a jam, and Tyler happened to be there. It's after he'd gone to Nashville, but he came back from the holidays or something. We were at this jam, and he played, and you know, and word got around there who he was and what he did for a living. And I had this guy come up to me, and he handed me his card. And he had played guitar, and he was advanced beginner at best. And but he had a good time, and it was fun. And it was great. He hands me his card, and he goes, "Hey, listen, give this to him. So anytime you can't make one of his gigs, that I'll be happy to come down and fill in." And I looked at him, and I took the card, and I said, "I'll do that. Thanks a lot." And I walked away thinking, there's a disconnect here. and maybe it's because they saw him at a jam and just only what he did at that jam. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but there is in a lot of people's mind a big disconnect. Again, let me say that a number of the players that we see at jams have been at that level and
Yeah.
understand that and that kind of thing. But those aren't the guys you hear say, "I'm a professional, I can handle this," because those are the guys that haven't been close to that yet and don't really understand what the differences are in those situations. And I don't put those guys down at all. It's simply a lack of knowledge and a lack
Yeah.
of experience and a presumption that it is as easy as it looks, and it isn't. It's not as
Yeah.
easy as it looks. It isn't. And again, has less to do with your ability to play or copy, if you will, 'cause, you know, they're copying the studio
Right.
stuff every
Yeah.
night. And
I
yeah.
love what you were talking about with the idea of, because this is something that it would be, I've said this on about every one, is that
Yeah.
that would be my general advice to younger players is we have to just spend our whole lives practicing and stuff with all the music stuff, and that is what it is.
It
And,
is what
and
it is.
there's 1,000 YouTube videos and 1,000
right.
teachers, and,
That's
and
right.
it's not easy, but there's a lot of help for that.
That's right.
The thing that you were talking about is basically what they were interested in, and what your son was, the questions your son was asking was about business side and about like personality kind of,
personal people.
Yeah,
What it-
and
what- yes.
why are they calling you? How are you? And he was probably watching
That's
a
right.
lot, seeing like
Yeah.
how is this guy dressing today? What is his attitude in general when he's talking to his own
That's right.
band leader
That's
or
right.
his marketing, his all
Uh-huh.
that
All
non-musical
of the
stuff.
non-musical stuff.
It fascinates me because none of us are trained in any of
No,
that.
they're not.
We're trained
They're
to play
not.
music beautifully,
Right.
and especially in college.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, we were talking about knowing your role.
Yeah.
What is your role?
Yeah.
If you're not a personality that is content to be a sideman, or you want to be a sideman but you want your 15 minutes of fame every 90-minute show, that may not be. You may need to find the group that will allow you to do that, because most of them won't
Yeah.
unless you are the headliner. And so yes, it's all of those things that roll into there. What is the creative? Are you willing to compromise? Are you willing to do what your producer asks you to do, even though you may have your own ideas or whatever? Are you willing to be a professional at what you do, which goes far beyond equipment and far beyond abilities and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great, man.